If someone had asked me a few years ago what family meant, I would have smiled without hesitation and said, everything. I believed that with all my heart. Growing up, my world revolved around my parents and my younger brother, Ethan. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. My father worked as an accountant, and my mother stayed home for most of my childhood. Ethan was 4 years younger than me and had a smile that could light up an entire room. I adored him. When our grandparents passed away, life changed in ways I didn't fully understand. They had always been my biggest supporters. My grandmother never missed a school play, and my grandfather was the first person to tell me that I could achieve anything if I worked hard enough. After their deaths, I learned they had left me a trust fund. The money wasn't meant to make me rich. It was meant to help me build a future. My grandparents wanted me to attend college without debt, buy a home someday, and have opportunities they never had. I was 18 when I first gained access to information about the fund. The amount shocked me. There was nearly $300,000 waiting for me when I reached certain milestones in life. I remember crying when I read the letter my grandparents had left behind. Emma, it said, "We hope this gift gives you freedom, security, and the courage to follow your dreams." For years, I protected that letter like a treasure. I had plans. I wanted to finish university, start my own business, and eventually buy a small house with a garden. Nothing extravagant, just a life built on stability and hard work. Then Ethan got sick. At least that's what we were told. I still remember the night my parents sat me down at the kitchen table. My mother's eyes were red from crying. My father looked exhausted. Ethan wasn't there. The moment I saw their faces, my stomach dropped. "What happened?" I asked. My mother burst into tears. My father swallowed hard before speaking. The doctors found something. The room felt suddenly smaller. "What do you mean? It's cancer." He whispered. I stared at him. The word didn't feel real. Cancer. Not Ethan, not my little brother who spent weekends playing video games and annoying me by stealing food off my plate. Anyone but him. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then I started crying. The months that followed became a blur of hospital visits, medical appointments, and fear. Every time I saw Ethan sitting in a hospital bed, looking pale and tired, my heart shattered a little more. My parents did everything they could to support him, or so I believed. They spent countless hours speaking with doctors. They researched treatments late into the night. They attended support groups and charity events. I watched them struggle and admired their strength. Then came the financial problems. One evening, my father called me into his office. Stacks of medical bills covered his desk. He looked defeated. "The insurance isn't covering enough," he said quietly. I felt panic rise in my chest. What does that mean? It means we're running out of options. For the first time, I saw tears in my father's eyes. There are experimental treatments that could help Ethan, but they are expensive. I already knew what he was going to ask. My trust fund, the money my grandparents had left for my future. For a brief moment, I thought about everything I would lose. My dream home, my business plans, my financial security. Then I thought about Ethan, my little brother. The boy I loved more than anything. The decision became easy. "Take it," I said. My father looked stunned. "What? Use whatever you need. Emma, that's your future." I shook my head. Ethan is my future too. My mother hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. They thanked me over and over again, and every single time they did, I felt proud. Proud that I could help. Proud that my grandparents' gift was saving someone I loved. I had no idea that the people sitting across from me that night were hiding a secret so cruel it would eventually destroy everything I believed about family. At the time, all I knew was this: my brother was sick, my parents were hurting, and I would have sacrificed absolutely anything to save him. For nearly 2 years, I lived for one purpose: helping Ethan survive. Every decision I made revolved around him. I worked extra shifts after classes. I canceled vacations. I put my dreams on hold without a second thought. Whenever my parents needed money for treatments, specialists, medications, or travel expenses, I transferred it immediately. The trust fund my grandparents had spent a lifetime building slowly disappeared, but I never regretted it. How could I? I believed I was helping save my brother's life. By the time I turned 24, almost everything was gone. The only thing that mattered to me was seeing Ethan get better, and according to my parents, he was. The treatments seemed to be working. Ethan looked healthier, his energy returned. The doctors were supposedly optimistic. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful. Then one ordinary Tuesday night changed everything. I was lying on my couch scrolling through my phone after work when a notification appeared on my screen. At first, I barely noticed it, a message from a group chat that wasn't unusual. What caught my attention was the name. Family Planning Red, I frowned. I had never seen that group before. Stranger still, the notification disappeared almost immediately, as if someone had deleted the message. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened my messaging app. The group wasn't visible. Confused, I searched the name manually. To my surprise, it appeared. My heart skipped a beat. The group included my mother, my father, Ethan, several relatives, and somehow I had been accidentally added. The newest message had already been deleted. I hesitated, then I tapped the chat. What I found destroyed my world. The first message I saw was from Ethan. Mom, Emma transferred another $8,000 today. Below it was a laughing emoji from my father, then another message. At this rate, she'll empty the entire fund herself. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisted. The words didn't make sense. I kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Every new message felt like a knife sinking deeper into my chest. The group chat stretched back years, thousands of messages, thousands of lies. I found conversations discussing fake hospital visits, fake doctor appointments, fake medical reports, even fake photographs. One message from my mother made my hands shake. Make sure Ethan wears the hospital bracelet before Emma arrives. Another read, don't forget to look tired. She gets suspicious when you seem too healthy. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. I kept reading anyway. A part of me desperately hoped there was some explanation. There wasn't. The truth was worse than anything I could have imagined. Ethan never had cancer, not once, not ever. Every diagnosis had been fabricated. Every tear had been a performance. Every hospital visit had been staged. The treatments didn't exist. The bills were fake. The reports were forged. The sickness was a lie, and everyone knew. Everyone except me. I felt physically sick. My hands trembled so badly that I nearly dropped my phone. Then I found the messages about my trust fund. The money wasn't paying for medical care. It was paying for luxury vacations. Designer clothes, home renovations, credit card debt, a new car for Ethan, a beach resort trip for my parents. There were even photographs, pictures of smiling faces at expensive restaurants, while I worked double shifts, believing my brother was fighting for his life. The betrayal was unbearable, but the worst message came from Ethan himself, my little brother, the boy I would have died for. Honestly, Emma is too easy. Tell her it's for treatment and she'll hand over anything. A flood of laughing emojis followed. I stared at those words for what felt like hours. Something inside me broke, not cracked, not weakened. Broken, the brother I loved had never seen me as family. I was a bank account, a victim, a fool. Tears streamed down my face as I continued reading. For 6 straight hours, I sat alone in my apartment collecting evidence, screenshots, photos, bank transfers. Voice messages, receipts, every lie, every scam, every betrayal. By sunrise, I had saved thousands of files. My eyes burned, my heart felt hollow. The old Emma, the trusting daughter, the protective sister, had disappeared sometime during that night. In her place stood someone new, someone who finally knew the truth, someone who understood that the people she loved most had stolen more than her money. They had stolen her trust. And for the first time since discovering the group chat, I wasn't crying anymore. I was planning, because while my family thought they had fooled me forever, they had made one fatal mistake. They accidentally showed me everything, and they had no idea what was coming next. For the next 3 weeks, I acted as if nothing had happened. It was the hardest performance of my life. Every phone call from my mother made my skin crawl. Every text from Ethan felt like poison. Every time my father thanked me for helping save the family, I had to fight the urge to expose everything right then and there. But anger without a plan is useless. I wanted justice, and justice required patience, so I smiled, I nodded. I played the role they expected. Meanwhile, I was building a case that would destroy every lie they had spent years creating. The first person I contacted was a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a fraud specialist. When I walked into his office carrying a flash drive filled with screenshots, I expected skepticism. Instead, after reviewing the evidence for nearly an hour, he looked at me and said words I would never forget. "This is one of the most documented fraud cases I've ever seen. For the first time since discovering the truth, I felt a small spark of hope." The lawyer explained that my grandparents had established strict protections around my trust fund. What my parents had done wasn't just morally wrong. It was potentially criminal, especially because forged medical documents had been used to obtain money. The more evidence we uncovered, the worse it became. Bank records revealed exactly where the money had gone. Luxury resorts, designer stores, vehicle payments, private club memberships, expensive electronics. While I had been eating instant noodles to save money, my family had been enjoying 5-star vacations. Every discovery fueled my determination. Still, I wasn't interested in screaming matches. I wasn't interested in dramatic confrontations in someone's living room. I wanted the truth revealed where nobody could deny it. Then fate handed me the perfect opportunity. A week later, my parents announced they were hosting a huge family gathering. According to them, it was a celebration. Ethan had supposedly reached a major milestone in his recovery. Dozens of relatives were invited. Family, friends, neighbors, church members, even people who had donated money over the years. Nearly everyone who had supported Ethan would be there. The moment I heard about the event, an idea formed in my mind. By the end of that night, my lawyer and I had finalized every detail. I spent days organizing evidence. Every screenshot was sorted chronologically. Every bank transfer was labeled. Every forged document was highlighted. Every lie was connected to proof. The presentation eventually grew to more than 100 slides. It wasn't revenge driven by rage. It was truth backed by facts. The day of the party finally arrived. My parents rented a large event hall. Decorations filled the room. A banner reading "Celebrating Ethan's Victory" hung above the stage. People laughed, hugged, and congratulated my family. Watching it all felt surreal. Every smile in the room had been earned through deception. Every expression of sympathy had been manipulated, yet nobody knew, not yet. As the evening continued, my father stepped onto the stage. He thanked everyone for their prayers, donations, and support over the years. The audience applauded. My mother wiped away fake tears. Ethan smiled proudly. Then my father made a mistake. He invited me to speak. Emma has been Ethan's biggest supporter. He announced, without her sacrifices, none of this would have been possible. The crowd erupted into applause. I slowly stood. For a brief moment, I saw pride in my parents' eyes. They thought they had won. They thought I was about to praise them. Instead, I walked to the microphone and smiled. I actually prepared a surprise presentation, I said. Excited murmurs spread through the audience. My father nodded enthusiastically. That's wonderful. He had no idea. The projector screen behind us lit up. The first slide appeared, a screenshot from the secret group chat. The room fell silent. My mother's smile disappeared instantly. My father's face turned pale. Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. I clicked to the next slide, then another and another, every lie, every message, every fake diagnosis. Every forged document, every stolen dollar displayed for everyone to see, gasps echoed throughout the hall. People stared in disbelief. Some began crying. Others looked physically sick. The donors who had emptied their savings to help Ethan watched their trust shatter in real time. Relatives who had defended my parents for years sat frozen in shock. No one spoke. No one could. The evidence was overwhelming. By the time I reached the final slide, the room had completely turned against them. And as I looked at my family's terrified faces, I realized something important. The revenge wasn't the humiliation. The revenge was the truth, because once the truth entered that room, their lies no longer belonged to me. They belonged to everyone, and there was no way to hide them anymore. The silence that followed my presentation was unlike anything I had ever experienced. More than 100 people filled the event hall, yet not a single person spoke. The truth had stolen every word from the room. My parents stood frozen near the stage. Ethan looked as if he might collapse. For years, they had controlled the narrative. They had decided what everyone believed. They had hidden behind sympathy, fake tears, and fabricated medical reports. Now the truth was standing in the middle of the room for everyone to see, and there was nowhere left to run. The first person to break the silence was an elderly woman who had donated thousands of dollars to Ethan's so-called treatment fund. Tears filled her eyes as she stared at my mother. "You lied to all of us." My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Another donor stood up, then another and another. Questions began flying from every direction. What happened to the money? Was any of it real? Did Ethan ever have cancer? How long have you been doing this? The pressure became overwhelming. My father attempted to speak. "It's not what it looks like." A voice from the crowd interrupted him. "Then explain the screenshots." Another voice followed. "Explain the bank records." Someone else shouted. "Explain the fake medical documents." There was no explanation, only evidence. The lies that had survived for years were collapsing within minutes. I watched quietly as the people who had betrayed me finally faced the consequences of their actions. For the first time in years, I felt calm, not happy, not victorious, just calm. The police investigation began less than a week later. Multiple donors filed complaints. Several relatives submitted statements. The fraud specialist, working with my lawyer, provided authorities with the evidence we had collected. What followed was a complete unraveling of my family's carefully constructed world. Investigators discovered forged documents, false fundraising campaigns, fraudulent financial transfers, misuse of donated money, and most importantly, proof that my trust fund had been manipulated through deliberate deception. Every month seemed to bring another revelation. The news spread quickly through our community. People who once praised my parents stopped answering their calls. Former friends distanced themselves. Organizations that had supported Ethan publicly cut ties. The sympathy they had enjoyed for years disappeared almost overnight. Meanwhile, the legal process moved forward. After months of hearings and negotiations, a significant portion of the stolen money was recovered. Not all of it, some had already been spent, but enough was returned to help me rebuild my future. The day the funds were transferred back into my account, I sat alone in my apartment and cried. Not because of the money, because for the first time since my grandparents died, I felt as though they had protected me one last time. Their gift had survived the betrayal, their love had survived the lies, and somehow so had I. A year later, my life looked completely different. I finished my education. I purchased a modest home with a small garden, exactly the kind of place I had always dreamed about. Most importantly, I started a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping children with genuine cancer diagnoses and families struggling with treatment expenses. Real families, real pain, real hope. Every child we helped felt like a small victory against the deception that had once controlled my life. People often asked why I chose that mission. The answer was simple: because I knew what stolen compassion looked like, and I wanted to protect others from experiencing it. As for Ethan and my parents, their lives never fully recovered. The consequences of their choices followed them everywhere. Trust, once destroyed, proved impossible to regain. The reputation they had spent years building vanished because of the lies they had chosen to tell. I rarely thought about them anymore. Not because I had forgotten, because I had finally moved on. One autumn afternoon, nearly 2 years after exposing the truth, I visited my grandparents' graves. The cemetery was peaceful. Golden leaves drifted across the grass. I placed fresh flowers beside their headstone and sat quietly for several minutes. Then I unfolded the letter they had written for me years earlier. The paper had become worn from countless readings. But the words remained the same, words about courage, about integrity, about building a meaningful life. As tears filled my eyes, I smiled. For years, I believed revenge meant making the people who hurt you suffer. I was wrong. Real revenge is living well after they tried to break you. Real revenge is finding peace after betrayal. Real revenge is refusing to become like the people who hurt you. My parents and brother stole my trust. They stole my money. They stole years of my life, but they failed to steal the one thing that mattered most: my future. And as I stood and walked away from the graves, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun on my face, I realized something beautiful. Their story had ended with lies. Mine was only beginning with freedom.